I watched an angry confrontation not too long ago where the young man who was behind the counter at McDonald's was really upset with the people in the parking lot. True, they were a little intoxicated and being disrespectful and loud, and he asked them to leave several times, and they didn't. But his ability to ask them to leave, or his perceived ability to ask them to leave, was based on the authority that his name badge said manager. Manager. That means I'm responsible for this place. I'm the manager. And I said leave. And the manager tells you to leave, you have to leave. It didn't work. It didn't work. I remember having been a manager and having employees who were just defiant and didn't want to do anything that they didn't want to do. And they would tell you they were going to do it, but they never do it. I could just see them as I walked out of the room, turning around to everybody else going, that ain't going to happen. I'm not going to do it. Maybe you've worked in an environment like that where either you're the manager and you ask your team or tell your team to do a particular task and nothing happens. Or maybe you've been that employee that the manager tells you to do something and you're like, right. And they leave the room and you do absolutely nothing, or exactly the opposite. But it's not the name badge that gives you authority. It's not the nameplate on your desk that has your name and your title so clearly defined. That's not it. It's not even the lambskin on the wall that says I'm the doctor of so-and-so or the master's degree of so-and-so. That's not what gives you authority. Well, then where does authority come from? I love the way John Maxwell says it. You want to increase your authority, give some away. And I've found that to be very true. It's amazing how well delegation grows authority. Delegation grows authority. Now you have to exercise your authority and you have to exhibit your authority, meaning you've got to be able to demonstrate that you have authority. And by that I mean that when you ask for things to be done, or declare that things will be done, or mandate that things will be done, or dictate that things will be done, that whatever those things are that you've said, this needs to get done, and the consequences if it doesn't get done will look like this. In order for you to exhibit your authority, you've got to be able to demonstrate that if I said you need to do this or you will get fired, that they're actually going to get fired. Because nothing erodes your authority faster than when that doesn't work. I actually took a position as a store manager, and this has been 20 years ago now. There was a young man when I came into the store who had been the customer service manager in that store for a year or so. He was a young guy. He was much younger than I was, and I was young then. And he was pretty convinced he was going to get the store manager job, really wanted the raise, et cetera, but still had a tendency to party too long, come back to work drunk after a lunch where he had entertained customers at a topless bar, would come to work drunk from time to time, would show up late, would ask to leave early. He just didn't have the work ethic. He did pretty good work while he was there, and he knew the system and the process and how to take care of the customer. He knew all that well, but his work ethic just wasn't there. And so when they hired me in as a store manager and made me his supervisor, he was not very happy about it. And so he would oftentimes go around me to the area manager that he had a great relationship with, because they were the guys that went to the topless bars together to entertain clients for lunch. He would go around me and say, well, this is what Loren's doing, and he's acting like this, and he's asked me to do this and this and this. And finally he came in one day and I told him there were a particular set of things that I needed to get done, and I needed his help with a few of them, and that I needed to go to the main store for a little bit and I would be back. And he said, I'm not doing it. Just flat out told me I'm not doing it. Then he called me and told me that he was having lunch with the area director and the VP and my bosses, and he was going representing our store. And I'm like, how did you manage to get the invitation to represent our store at that meeting? And he said, well, they like me better. It's like, okay, then they need to make you the manager and let me go do another job somewhere, because this is ridiculous. I'm not gonna pretend to be the manager and take responsibility if they're not going to let me have the authority. And so we had quite the outing, and I finally just told him, "You're fired, get out of the store." So he left and went straight to the area manager, who called me back and told me I didn't have the authority to fire him. So I called the VP and I said, "You're going to have to decide who's going to be the store manager. Is it going to be me or is it going to be him? Because I'm not going to continue to work with him in my store. You can move him to another store. Anybody else can have him, but I don't want him. I will do his work myself before I work with direct insubordination." And so we all had a nice little lunch together. And the VP told him right there at the table with everybody at the table, "If you're not going to be a supportive employee in that store, I don't want you in any store." And he was terminated. I say all that to say, when you declare that you have authority, you better be able to back it up. If you are going to make a declaration about what's going to happen if people don't comply with your expectations, you better be able to bring the consequences and bring them swiftly and bring them accurately. Now, that doesn't mean unfairly. That doesn't mean to exhibit your authority in the way that you're a power freak or a control freak or that you're hurting other people. What it means is that if you say, "Listen, I need you to do this or I'm going to write you up," if they're like, "Whatever, write me up," you don't have any authority. Not because your name badge doesn't say so, not because your title on the paycheck or your desk or your door or the lambskin on the wall doesn't say so, but because the people that you're leading don't respect your authority. They don't see that you have any. That's a challenge. And part of that challenge comes because you don't have the ability or the leverage or the designated authority to level the consequences for them not complying with your expectations. You've got to be able to exhibit your authority in some way. If you tell someone, "If you do that again, you'll be fired," you've got to know that you've got people backing you up to ensure that they're fired and they lose their job and they're out of there. If you tell someone, "Do that again and I'll take away your car keys," "Do that again and you'll be going straight to bed," you've got to be able to back that up. And I can tell you, many people have experienced in their life a parent who is a tyrant or a dictator but doesn't exhibit or exercise their authority. And young people grow up with a lack of respect for authority. Kids who are told, "If you do that again, I'm going to count to 3. And you get to 57 and they're still doing it and you're still counting. You have no authority. I don't care if you're the parent or not. You've just demonstrated that you have no authority. And that young person, that toddler today, will become a teen with no respect for authority because they've never seen it exhibited or exercised properly. Parents who don't use their authority, they don't exhibit or exercise it properly, will find themselves with teenagers who rebel against authority. And when they finally find someone who has authority, when that law enforcement officer says, "Put your hands behind your back," and they say, "No," they're about to experience what delegated and designated authority look like. When they're spun around, put on the ground, and handcuffed against their will, thrown in the back of a car, and taken to jail for resisting arrest because mom counted to 3 and then 9 and then 12 and then 15 and then 18 and just kept going instead of exhibiting the authority. I'm old school, but I still believe in corporal punishment. Not abuse, but corporal punishment. I believe if you say, "Do that again and I'm going to smack your backside," that you don't wait 15 times from now. That if they even begin to do it again, you get their attention and you let them know there will be consequences for bad choices. Right now, they look like that. In 15 years, they look like handcuffs. In 25 years, they look like prison. There are consequences for bad choices. Every time. Bad relational choices, bad financial choices, bad employment choices, bad running against the law choices. There are consequences for bad choices every time. Some of them are more immediate than others. Some of them just catch up with you a few years from now. But I want you to understand that if you have authority in someone's life, you have to have the ability and the fortitude, the willingness to demonstrate that authority in its proper context. If you say do it again and there's going to be punishment, there better be punishment. If you say do that again and you're going to be fired, or don't do this and you're going to be fired, you better have the wherewithal to back it up. So back to the story of my manager friend at the McDonald's. How would you handle a defiant customer like that? What level of authority do you have to change someone's behavior in your parking lot? Having never been trained how to cope with a situation like that was part of his problem. He had never been given the delegated authority or the designated authority to cope with a situation like that. That's not real complicated. If you feel like your customer's safety is in danger, lock the door. If you don't feel like your customer's safety is in danger, then simply call 911 and tell them you've got some disturbances in your parking lot and you would like them dealt with. It's not your place to modify other people's behavior. Your job is french fries. Your job is soft drinks. Your job is customer service, making sure that when I order a hamburger, it's neither burned nor cold. That's the job of a manager of a fast food place. Just do that job. Behavior of people in the parking lot, not in your job description. And you should be thankful for that, because sometimes those unruly idiots in your parking lot are carrying weapons. And you may have just put your life in danger because your name tag says manager. Don't do that. Close the door. Lock the door if need be. Yes, in my 20s and 30s, I ran convenience stores for a couple of different companies. If we were ever robbed, we'd give them everything in the cash register. It's not my money, and it's insured. It's not worth my life. Now, I know people who own the stores, and they will fight you to the death over that $250 in the cash register. I'm not going to do it. My authority extends to making sure that the merchandise on the shelf stays where it's supposed to be on the shelf, that it stays clean, that the customer service is provided, that the money changes hands properly. That's it. If somebody's going to come in and defy my authority to keep the cash register clean and safe, I'm not going to fight that. It's not worth losing my life over. So many people have a skewed idea of what authority is and looks like and how it works. They don't have respect for authority. They don't feel like there will ever be consequences, that they'll ever be caught, or that somebody's just going to count to 3 and then to 103 and then to 203 and then to 303 and still be counting as they get away. Because that's what they've been trained. Because what they've seen is authority that's in label only. It's in name badge only. It's only because I'm the parent that I have the lambskin on the wall that you have to listen to me. That's not the case. So how do you grow authority? Well, you grow authority first by demonstrating it and exhibiting it in a proper way, that if I say, then there will be consequences. But next you grow it by giving it away. When people are young, especially in their 8 to 12, 8 to 15 age range, depending on their maturity level, the more opportunity that you give them to make choices on their own and face consequences on their own, the more they will respect not only your authority, but they will grow in their own. A young man who's 9, 10 years old and begins mowing the lawn on his own can learn some great responsibility, and authority comes along with that. If he can be responsible for the equipment like the weed eater and the lawnmower and the edge trimmers and the blower, then trust him with those things. But also hold him accountable that if he runs over the sprinkler head or the edge of the driveway and destroys the lawnmower, he's going to be responsible for paying for that. See, that exercise of responsibility with authority begins to show those consequences relationships very quickly. When you give them a new toy and they break it, they're responsible for replacing it. You gave them the first one. That's not the same as counting 100, 200, 500. It's a matter of saying consequences are immediate and they're yours to bear. And if you make bad decisions, consequences follow. Delegating that authority gives young people an opportunity to see what it's like to face consequences, especially when they're quick and they're swift, but they're not drastic. Break your PSP because you got mad and threw the controller across the floor? Sorry, you don't have one to play with for a while. That's pretty swift. That's pretty immediate consequence. But it doesn't have to be life-altering. It doesn't have to be physical violence. It doesn't have to be corporal punishment. You broke your own toy. That was kind of dumb. What are you going to do now? You're going to have to mow yards and save up money and buy another one, or wash cars, or have a lemonade stand. You're going to have to do something to come up with the money because I'm not buying another one. Those kind of swift consequences can be life-changing without being life-altering. That's very important for parents to understand. And it's very important for managers and leaders to understand as well. There's a great book, I can't remember the name of the author, but he's a Navy admiral. He was the admiral on the Nimitz class destroyer. And his book is called It's Your Ship. It's Your Ship. And the whole premise of the book is, whatever it is that you feel is in your heart to do, I'm going to delegate the authority to you to do it. If it's great, you get all the applause. If it's a train wreck, you get all the blame. But I'm going to give you the authority to move forward with the idea. That's how you grow your authority. When you say that in English. When you delegate and designate authority to other people, your authority grows as well, for two very primary reasons. Number one, as you give away, your influence expands among other people as you give each of them delegated authority. When you designate that authority in their life, they immediately reciprocate back to you and say, if you've trusted me with this, this, and this, help me with the things that I don't know yet. And that reciprocal relationship becomes very, very powerful when you hand off to someone and say, you've got this. I see you completely capable of doing this. Here are the type of consequences you can expect if you do it wrong. Here are the type of rewards you can expect if you do it right. Let me know if you need any advice. That kind of relationship is very powerful at growing your authority. And by visibility, other people look and say, wow, that person has the opportunity to do X, Y, and Z because of their relationship. And I want that same kind of relationship. Again, you have expanded authority. You want to grow your authority, give some away. You want to see your authority exhibited well, then demonstrate it by making your expectations clear, making your mandates clear, and the consequences as well, and then follow up on those consequences. Don't expect someone to follow rules that are never enforced. They won't. And parents, you're the first line leaders that our young people have. When they're toddlers, when they're 2 and 3 years old and they're just learning what it means to say no, don't let them run the world with no. But make sure that you enforce whatever threats you put out there. Make your threats realistic, not abuse, and then enforce them. Make sure the consequences are swift and decisive, not dangerous and harmful. And we will see the world as it applies authority in a whole new way. I'm J Loren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.